Do you kindly join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll begin by reviewing the draft minutes of our previous meeting held in July. I make a motion to approve the draft minutes with a number of seconds. Second, thanks. Patricia, all in favor?
Aye.
Approved without amendment. We'll review the agenda as posted on the town website. We'll begin by Brandy seeking area variances, followed by Marie's Muse LLC seeking sign and area variances, followed by Olson with an appeal. So I believe that the applicant for the first item is not here. It is, I believe, the second month in a row, so.
We'll reach out to Mr. Grande and see, if he would, if he is not going to pursue this, if he would withdraw the application.
Okay, thank you, John. So then we'll continue to Marie's Muse. The applicant wants to come on up, please. We are in receipt of a new packet to clarify some of the questions that came up in our July meeting. It seems that since we last met, the planning board has signed on to be the lead agency on this project for the whole redevelopment, the entire redevelopment project. And that they are also consented to have a joint public hearing. Okay, thanks. So if you want to update us, we have to.
Sure.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Tim Freitag with Bullard Engineering here on behalf of the applicant to continue pursuing the area variances associated with the development here at the intersection of Mohawk and Hoosick Road. The mixed-use development, 3 proposed buildings and uses here. Since we last spoke in July, as Ms. Jefferson mentioned, we have been in front of the planning board a couple times. They would like to pursue a joint public hearing on this project if this board so wishes. SECRA is in motion. Since we last spoke, we've updated a previous area variance application with a supplemental. We worked closely with Chuck on outlining what's required in addition to what was previously submitted. Paul here, Paul Van Cott with White Moss Montana, is here representing the package that you have received. He can certainly walk you through any details on the variance application and the justification that was provided, but all that information is in the packet. The site plan is generally the same since you last saw it. It was really just working through the dimensional criteria against the zoning code of what was compliant and what was not. A couple minor differences you may see on this plan is just the pedestrian connectivity out to Hoosick Street. We provided a second form of connection to the sidewalk there on the eastern side of the site, coming up across the parking lot to service those 2 facilities. And on the western side of the site, where the proposed restaurant use, there is a trash enclosure at the drive-through entrance. That was considered an accessory structure because it does have an attached shed to it. It's a small 100 square foot shed that does have a roof. What they use that for is snow removal equipment or shovels that they may need in the wintertime. That is right there. So that was identified as additional variance in the application package. Lastly, as far as the canopy structures go, there's 2 proposed canopies over the drive-through. One here, as well as here. But in further review and coordination with town staff, the canopy on the eastern side of the building is actually attached to the building, and it's it's just a cantilever canopy with additional column support. So we actually subtracted that from the previous gross accessory structure size. That actually made that variance better, a less reduction. In the package, it was a step-by-step description for each variance, so we're certainly here to discuss or answer any questions you may have on those outlined in the report.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I would appreciate kind of like going over the step by step.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad to. Yep. All right. Now, if I step away and refer to the site plan, is that all right? Is that gonna,
Hang on, bring it close.
that could happen.
Engineer.
All right, I know. I would never figure that out. Okay. So as Tim indicated, we did provide a resubmission, and thanks very much to Chuck for your guidance, helping us get there. We're also joined tonight by Clint Masson, our client from Chick-fil-A, and his colleague, who's learning the ropes.
Good to have you. Thanks for coming tonight.
So, again, so we resubmitted, we have a new suite of variances, and at Chuck's suggestion, we broke them out from board. So the first group is the accessory structures and the parking. And as Tim indicated, we have two accessories, detached accessory structures that require variances, one being the trash enclosure and the other being the ordering canopy, which is over 2 lanes of traffic here. And these two structures each require 2 variances. The ordering canopy requires a variance because it's within 75 feet of Hoosick Road. And it also requires a variance because it is forward of the principal building, the restaurant on the property. The trash enclosure gets double dinged because it's within 75 feet of Hoosick Road, but also within 75 feet of Mohawk Avenue. So those are those 4 variances. Combined, your code allows 1,500 square feet for accessory structures. We are at, it was 1950. 100 square feet for the trash enclosure, and then 1,850 square feet for the canopies. So again, over 2 drive-through lanes. So that's a variance of 450 square feet required for our accessory structure size. In addition to those 5 variances, we require a variance of 11.9 square feet. 11 feet.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 11 feet for these parking spaces along the back line because they abut a residential property. So those are the 5 area and parking variances that we've identified. Maybe just if it's all right, what I would do is just speak to those variances first in terms of why we're here and why we see no feasible way of doing this other than to obtain the variances that we're seeking. First of all, and this is really critical, the layout of the site, there's no feasible way to do it without a variance. Basically, the way it is all set up, we have traffic coming off of Hoosick Road with sufficient distance for vehicles to come off the road and not impede or make traffic problematic here. And the same, this shared driveway goes right across through the site. And then again, it's a decent distance away from the intersection with Hoosick Road here. And so that is critical in terms of making sure that we're not adversely affecting the traffic on Hoosick Road at those intersections. The need, basically the design of a Chick-fil-A restaurant always provides sufficient room for stacking of vehicles so that they're not backing up into the parking areas and clogging up traffic. Room to come under the ordering canopy and then make their way to the meal delivery canopy where they pick up their meals and then safely get back out and onto the street. The only alternative, given the dimensions of this lot, would be if you were to flip it. And if Hoosick Road was down here, what you would have is people, you'd have to, that's your shared driveway and Mohawk's over here, but your entrance onto Mohawk Avenue would be almost right at the intersection with Hoosick Road. Unsafe if it was even allowed. Similarly, instead of having traffic coming off of Hoosick Road and having adequate distance to move away from that intersection, traffic would be coming off of Hoosick Road and having to get right into the Chick-fil-A parking area and ordering lane and whatnot. So there would be a lot of potential for backed up traffic and issues related to traffic on Hoosick Road. So that's really what drives the layout, along with the fact that the layout that we have is always oriented towards pedestrian safety. The core customer parking area is here closer to the building. This layout allows for traffic to essentially go around the area where pedestrians are most likely to be walking, providing a safer internal circulation for pedestrians and less opportunity for pedestrian vehicle conflicts. So that's what drives the layout for this project. In terms, and the trash enclosure here, I was trying to think where else could it go? You could put it back here, but if we're within 10 feet of the back boundary line, we're going to need a variance for it anyway. And we're certainly going to want to push it as far back as we could. So this is a good opportunity in place for it. Also allows for the dumpster trucks or whatever, as they're coming in, there's room for them to navigate, get in and out, and deal with the trash. So that's the trash enclosure. The parking along the back side of the property, we need that to meet our parking requirements for a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And the number that we've set for our parking includes these spaces. So we really don't have any feasible way of doing this with this shared access driveway cutting across the property without being up against the residential property line. What we are doing is that the owner of the Marie's Muse is working with the adjoining landowner to provide for screening and fencing to mitigate any impacts from visual noise from the project. That has not been set in stone at this point, but that is the applicant's intention. And certainly we would anticipate that would be something of interest to both the ZBA and the planning board to make sure that that's nailed down as part of the project.
At our public hearing, we hope to provide an update on that matter. It's in our court right now. We're having landscape architects
do some design-related elements on this rear property line along with this retaining wall to present to the neighbor to make sure that it was adequate for them.
And my understanding is that thus far, the neighboring property owner has been receptive to this concept. So are there any questions? You just want to make questions related to this?
Question.
Yeah.
How many cars do you anticipate to be able to handle in the stacking area?
Yeah, so we have a two-lane drive-through with an additional third-lane bypass lane should it be ever needed. Generally, in this drive-through lane, 34 plus cars in the 2 lanes. And then I have to check our narrative, but you can probably accommodate an additional 10 or so in that third lane should it ever be needed during the first peak period or grand opening period. In the traffic study that was submitted to the planning board that analyzes access, it also analyzed drive-through stacking capacity and a documented investigation of other locations to see how much drive-through stacking do you really need. On average, we've identified 20 to 24 spaces, what was observed at peak hours at other restaurants. So that sets the bar of what our minimum need is for stacking capacity, and we try to provide.
So that's just for the drive-through.
That's just for the drive-through. That's right.
So they're anticipating a high volume of service here.
There's a lot of cars on Hoosick Road there, traveling by. That's right.
Was there any consideration given to the possibility of not having 2 drive-through lanes in order to better meet the setback from Hoosick Road?
So this canopy actually stands over 3 lanes. So there's 2 menu boards, and there's actually a third lane here for bypass or should it ever back up. The 2 lane is something they've rolled out relatively recently through COVID. During COVID, there's been a higher demand on the drive-through use. And they rolled out this 2-lane drive-through that even allows 2-lane pickup, so there's actually a door here. But the 2 lanes is absolutely necessary for the projects moving forward. This third lane, some locations have it, some don't. So we're proposing it here just in case this was ever to back up. We didn't want to interfere with Mohawk or this drive lane over here. So we felt like this location was a good contender for that third lane.
I think just generally, the idea of having the 2 drive-through lanes, that the company has found that there's a real efficiency to that in terms of moving traffic around the site and through and out, which helps to speed up the process for the customer, make it a better process for the customer. It also minimizes the potential for internal traffic congestion.
Do you have a project timeline on the parcel to the east for the 2 buildings to be built?
The idea is to build this in one phase altogether. There are interested tenants over there that are kind of waiting to see if approvals come in place, but the intent is to build it in one phase.
I only ask because I know that the 2 other restaurants are fairly new, very popular, and traffic is a huge issue, and both of those restaurants can't handle the capacity of traffic right now. And they're using the Aldi's parking lot, they used it for the grand opening, to freeze-fill.
Oh,
And-
these 2 openings, I see.
Correct. And then the Clifton Park location, the 99 restaurant just shut down, and they weave through that parking lot on top of Clifton Park Road as well. So I didn't know if there was a staged timeline so that, for the first few weeks when Chick-fil-A is opening, to handle the additional capacity, to bring them through the other parking lot, and use that other parcel.
It's under same ownership. The applicant is the owner of the entire center. We introduced that idea to them. It's unclear, even though it's all built at the same time, it's probably rare that they would all open it at the exact same time. They might finish these facilities before this one or vice versa, try to overlap. But we can speak to them about
if the opportunity is there to do something like
And
that.
the DeFrisco location, I'm not sure where they did it, but they have the same thing like that, large, long row of parking. And for the first 2 weeks, they closed that off. They coned it off. Probably because it was just not accessible.
Because
Because there was so much traffic.
into the parking lot. That's
Yeah.
right. And remember, the first 2 openings are hopefully going to go a little different than a third, fourth, or fifth to market location. There are 2 or 3 other prospective projects like this in the capital region. So this could be the third, fourth, or fifth to market facility. So the idea of opening the Clifton Park location and the North Greenbush location was those are first market stores. Clifton Park actually sat and waited for 2 months before they opened, so they could open at the same time to make sure that they were trying to distribute as much of the traffic as possible. So they are willing to plan for things like that and do what they can, and they'll work with local town staff, fire department, police department, all leading up to the grand opening to see what they can do.
I was gonna mention that too, because I know in the town of North Greenbush, they worked with the Public Safety Committee to make sure that they had traffic covered with the police department
Yep.
out there as well.
Same with Clifton Park, we had multiple meetings with the supervisor and all the EMS staff over there to make sure we had a plan in place. So they're committed to do the same here.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A really pulls out the stops when it comes to the opening because they want to try and, come in a positive way into the community. And so they bring a lot of people into the process, and they have a team that's what they do. So, hopefully it'll alleviate issues to the extent that it can.
And realizing this isn't an Aldi grocery store lot, the additional staff in the third lane, parking flexibility, provides them flexibility to try to do as much as they can, so.
Okay, thank you.
Signs?
Let's go.
Read the signs. So again, with our signage, we're proposing a total of 12 signs that have the Chick-fil-A, either the logo or the cursive writing name. 7 of those signs are more almost directional in nature. They denote a parking space for an employee, 3 pickup spaces for customers who order online and then come in and pick up their order, and then another space for Grubhub and the food delivery companies. There are 2 menu boards that also have the cursive writing on them. And so those are 7 of the 12 signs that we have proposed with Chick-fil-A, either in writing or a logo. The 5 key advertising signs are located on, you have one over the entrance in the back. It's in writing, cursive writing facing, this one has cursive writing, I believe, as well. And this one has the logo over on this side. And then on the front, cursive writing again. So those 4 signs. And then we also have a freestanding sign right here in the front, closer to Hoosick Road. The restaurant is over 50 feet away from Hoosick Road, so that the freestanding sign, which is outside the 15-foot setback, will advertise the Chick-fil-A logo to traffic coming in both directions. The signs on the front and the 2 sides of the building also serve the primary purpose of advertising to traffic coming in both directions on Hoosick Road. And then again, as I mentioned, the sign over the entranceway will guide people to the entrance. And also, in case there's any question where Chick-fil-A is, as people come across the shared driveway. So those are our signs. We need a variance for 10 of those signs because we're over the 2 that the town allows. We also, for those same signs, we need a variance of 10 because you only allow signs on the front of your building. And so we have 1 sign on the front of our building of the 12, and we also have the freestanding sign. So the other 10 require a variance. In terms of overall square footage, we would be allowed a maximum of 300 square feet. Our calculation, working with the town, is that we're 314.05 square feet. So we require a square footage variance of 14.05 square feet. In terms of the signage, our first point is really that we believe we're consistent with the commercial environment along Hoosick Road in terms of other businesses, particularly other fast serve restaurants, quick serve restaurants. And we've identified and provided photographs of some of the surrounding businesses to show the board how we fit in terms of the community character along Hoosick Road, and how our project will not have a adverse impact on the environment. In terms of alternatives, there really are no alternatives that would not require a variance. Chick-fil-A, particularly the signs that are key to the advertising of the business, it's part and parcel of a quick service restaurant in the modern age. We need that branding in order to bring the customers in. It's critical to the viability of the business. There's nothing we could do except for to seek a variance because only 2 signs would be allowed. And only 1 sign, 2 signs either on the front of the building or in combination with the freestanding sign would be allowed. We find ourselves, I think, similar to the other quick serve restaurants along Hoosick Road. We mentioned McDonald's or Burger King and Taco Bell, and all of which have more than the 2 signs that are allowed by the zoning code, by the zoning law. So that doesn't get us there, but it is indicative of what the surrounding community character is, and we feel that we fit in. So all in all, and then the other signs, the other 7 signs, really, if you look at the signage plan, you can see it's just a sign like this with Chick-fil-A written down at the bottom in small letters. So it's, they're not obtrusive, and they're not going to have an impact on the neighboring properties. So taken together for all of the variances that we're seeking, when it comes to the balancing test, the granting of these variances will allow Chick-fil-A to meet its project objectives of providing safe and efficient circulation around the project site for customers, avoiding impacts to Hoosick Road and the traffic, onto existing traffic on Hoosick Road. They will also provide the project with the necessary visibility in order to be able to compete in the quick serve restaurant business. So that's the benefit that Chick-fil-A gains in granting the variances. In terms of the detriment, again, we feel that the project will fit in with the built environment and surrounding commercial uses along Hoosick Road. We don't believe it will cause any detriment to the community that is inconsistent with what has already been allowed or already exists. So for those reasons, we feel like the balancing test weighs in favor of Chick-fil-A and for the granting of the requested variances.
Thank you. Just have a question, if you could help me better understand the vinyl banner detail. I'm not familiar with that.
I believe that, is it on the last page?
I believe so, inside, section 5.
Yeah, just banner detail. This is just the sign package from the sign vendor. They include all signs. This is just a sign that goes inside the building during construction to help organize.
Okay.
And the other sign is for during construction.
And then there is a temporary sign that they display leading up to grand opening.
And that reader display, that's in section 5 as well?
Yes, that is on the freestanding sign detail. Right here.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And one item we discussed at the last meeting was adding the address to the base of that detail that we agreed to, so.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that too, because this one here for the transom, that entrance is on the other side of the building, not seen from the street, correct? So the address will be added to the bottom of the
It'll
monument
be
sign.
in the stone at the bottom of the sign.
What's the square feet of the size of the reader board display? So just that, like middle section above closed Sunday, below the logo?
So it's 3 feet, including the closed Sunday. Looks like that's 3 to 4 inches, so 32 inches by 48, so a little less than 3 by 4.
12, it's a 12.
What is it? I'm sorry. Oh, square, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
So your total is per side. Chuck did it, double that. He did it. On your sheet, you did it as 55.
So it's not supposed to be.
No, this is two-sided.
Oh, okay. Questions?
Any other questions, comments, additional information that may be helpful at the public hearing that we could supply?
John, you mentioned something about a pedestrian walkway at the last meeting.
Yeah, just something to connect the area, the walkway from those back parking lot spaces. Just so
You're
people.
looking for a crosswalk here, I believe, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. We provide some striping to this sidewalk island. It's a traffic calming measure that helps slow those cars down anyway, on a straightaway like that.
we did the same thing around Planet Fitness in the back. so that people kind of knew, instead of walking along the back of the building, walk at a certain location to it.
Good idea.
And so I don't believe we have any more questions at this time. Great. So I guess we wait to hear from the planning board. They usually are the ones who set up the dates for the joint public hearings.
Okay.
So
We do plan to attend the next planning board meeting and hope that they would set the public hearing. Would we need to come back to this board to agree to meet at that date, or is the next meeting with you folks potentially at that public hearing?
it could potentially be at that meeting.
Okay.
And if you needed to come back, we're meeting again September the 18th.
Next planning board meeting is the 7th. The second meeting for that month will be on the 21st
Okay, so it might be,
of September, so.
you might see us before then. Depends on what they want.
Great. Well, appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming tonight. Very much. Okay, so with the Folsom application, the zoning board's attorney, Mr. Andy Gilchrist, has recused himself. And since the last time the zoning board met in July, the town board appointed an attorney to act for the zoning board in this particular appeal, and that is Chris Limor, who is familiar with the appeal and familiar with the application. So welcome, thanks for being here tonight.
Good to see everybody again. Thank you. So on the agenda this evening is the matter of an appeal filed on June 16, 2023 on behalf of Mr. Charles Bolson. Mr. Bolson is appealing a determination issued by the building inspector dated April 19, 2023. I think what we're going to be doing this evening is having the board determine whether or not this appeal is ready to be scheduled for a public hearing according to the code, and so then scheduling that public hearing. There's a couple preliminary matters that you probably need to address. I believe all the board members have a copy of the appeal. If you look at page 7 of Mr. Stevens' letter, there is a concern raised based on the applicant's belief that one or more of the board members may have had communications with the building inspector, Mr. Golden, regarding the issues raised by Mr. Bolson in his appeal. And on that basis, there's a request that the ZBA members consider whether or not they need to recuse themselves from participating in the determination of the appeal. So before we take any action during the session of public hearing, I wanted to raise and address that request. I do recall that the last time, the second time we've seen an appeal from Mr. Bolson on this subject, in connection with the first appeal, Member Curran, I believe you chose to recuse yourself from that. You intend to recuse yourself for purposes of this.
Yes, I do.
So you'll deem yourself recused and off you go. Okay, so for the rest of you, Mr. Bolton, like any applicant, has the right to have his appeal heard and decided by impartial members of the ZBA. So the question that each of you need to ask yourself is this. Regardless of any communications you may or may not have had with Mr. Golden regarding either Mr. Bolson this property or the issues raised in this appeal. And regardless of what you may know or not know about Mr. Bolson and his property, the question is this: do you believe that you'll be able to hear and decide this appeal impartially, without bias, either in favor for or against the applicant, and in accordance with your best judgment based on the information that's going to be presented to you as part of this appeal? If the answer to that question is you believe you cannot hear and decide this appeal impartially, then you should recuse yourself. On the other hand, if, notwithstanding any prior information you may have regarding this matter, you still believe that you can act impartially and render an unbiased decision based on your best judgment, then you do not need to recuse yourself. So I guess my question for each of the board members is, at this time, is there any board member who believes that they need to recuse themselves from hearing and deciding this particular case?
No.
All right, no's all around. So with the exception of this current, the recuse yourself, the remaining board members of the board will proceed to hear and decide the appeal. Procedurally, unless the members have any questions, I think that the next step would be to set the matter down for a public hearing. Do the board members have any questions? Okay. Need to be addressed before the meeting.
Exactly what is the outcome of the appeal one way or another?
Well, that's for you to decide. So, you know, Mr. Bolton.
What is he asking for, of course?
Well, so maybe,
I mean, I read it over quickly, but I haven't really dived into it.
so, listen, I don't want to paraphrase Mr. Bolton's appeal for him. I think his letter sets it out fairly squarely. There's a difference of opinion between himself and the building inspector as the application of the code with respect to the requirements of this particular structure that he would like to build on his property. He is asking this ZBA in connection with his appeal to hear and decide which of the two of them, Mr. Bolson or the building inspector, has a proper interpretation application. So we're going to have a public hearing. I'm sure that Mr. Tejan will present and articulate the reasons why he believes their interpretation of the code is correct. And of course, that public hearing, if you still have questions, I'm sure they'll be able to address. Anything else before we? All right, so is the board prepared to set this matter down for a public hearing?
Yes, it is.
And what would be the date of that public hearing?
So the zoning board of appeals meets at a regular meeting again on September 18th.
So all the requisite notices for that public hearing will get sent out and published in accordance with requirements, all that good stuff.
That's right.
Does September 18th work for you folks? It does. Then, how do you guys, I don't typically practice in front of this board, so how do you guys do? Do you guys do a resolution, or you just note this and sit down for September 18th?
That's right. The minutes will reflect that, and we generally held, the meetings begin at 6 o'clock, and usually the public hearing begins at that time, 6 o'clock.
All right, so is there anything further that the board members need to do with respect to this application, other than set the public hearing?
The appropriate people will be noticed. We'll have the opportunity to speak for or against the application at that time.
All right, then I guess we'll be back on September 18th. All right, thank you. You guys just did a motion to close the hearing.
Yes, so, right, that's right. So we'll allow the public to speak for or against. We'll know.
No.
I'm sorry, tonight?
It's the next meeting.
Oh,
Is
yes.
there anything left to do, or are you
No,
guys done?
no, yeah, so I will ask the members of any new business items. Except Patricia, if you want to kindly rejoin us, please. Thank you. And,
Do you need Andy back, or? Like swap out
To do
again?
that, no, I don't think so, we can.
If there's no new business, like it is.
Right, if there is no new business, any concerns or issues from the members you'd like to bring up at this time? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Make a motion.
Thank you, John. Would member second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Daryl. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned tonight. Thank you.
Thanks for having me back, everybody.
Yeah,